How's it, guys, and welcome back to Art Club Online. My name is Marty, and this is my first YouTube video, which is rad. I'm super excited. Um, I have been working on a small landscape. This is the landscape. Um, a kind of magical realism slash analog, warm, atmospheric landscape. And the reason for that is because recently I painted a mountainscape of Montana in the Rockies, and I painted this as a commission for my sister and brother-in-law. And from that, I realized that there is a certain magic to painting landscapes, not just in plain air or outside in a field, but also in studio as a way of warming up. They are kind of like nondescript. I'm not trying to capture a likeness to somebody I know, which is a lot of my figurative paintings are people I know, and there's a certain looseness that comes with that. And what I've been trying to capture in these paintings is a an atmospheric uh, magic or warmth or something that provokes the imagination the same way that these nostalgic childhood photos that I've been painting for a long time over the last year and a half, um, that they provoke something essentially relatively similar. Um, these pictures, for instance, kind of have this kind of hazy, dreamlike, or this picture has a hazy, dreamlike quality, and something which I respond to as pictures like this one house memory and nostalgia in a certain different way. And I I think this thing about atmosphere is the word that I want to focus on, in the way that this hazy, dreamlike quality that this picture contains. It reminds me of like an old piano cover, or a like a dusty, forgotten about postcard left in a drawer for 20 years, and almost takes you back to another time. I'm painting this work on a wooden panel. Oh, painting this work on a wooden panel. I'm sanding it, priming it, sanding it, priming it, which gives it a very smooth feel and a quality which I'm very excited about. Um, and in the nature of landscape and uh, settling the work that I'm doing, these introductory warm-up paintings that I'm sharing with you, I want to root each of them in art history. And as um, an example in this one, I wanted to reference John Constable, and in so doing, I'm going to pull out my Constable book and just think about how it is that he himself was capturing atmosphere through his paintings. These like bulbous clouds and these brush brush strokes. Paintings like this, for instance, just incredible how he captures a feeling of warmth and of stepping into another universe. And I think that's what paintings often so beautifully uncover, is a step into another world. And in so doing, kind of pre-movies, we and photographs, we see this as the kind of doorway to a different universe, and I think that's really interesting. Another painter who may be worth referencing, or definitely is worth referencing, is J.M.W. Turner, whose work I fell in love with in high school, and he was actually a huge influence in the work that I made thereafter, kind of finding that, I guess, what you'd call a magical realism, but I know he was part of the Romanticist movement, and there was a fantasticalness to his work, and I think that there's a certain element of that in this picture, which I want to cover, and I want to extrapolate, and I want to bring out and transfer into the painting. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to talk anymore. Let's get some painting done, and I'll see you in there. Nice one. This is the top-down format that you will soon get used to, and I've got a little probably 15 by 15 wooden plywood offcut here that I've just primed a couple of times. It's just a basic white, and as you can see, I'm mixing a nice brown undertone. Nothing too complicated. I tend to just block in some basic, just put something down really. As uncomplicated as humanly possible. The first thing, the most important thing is just to break that first white, the inevitably overwhelming whiteness of the canvas or board in this case. On the palette from top left to right, I've got a burnt umber, I've got a medium yellow, and I've got a phthalo blue, and then a little white next to it. On the right, I've got a vermilion and a permanent green and a Naples yellow. So yeah, nice starting color palette, relatively limited, but not all that limited. Limitations are not really what I'm looking for right now, although we'll get there eventually. As far as, I don't know, there'll be other videos where it's more specific. So I've got my little dreamy landscape, as I called it, next to me. It's just above, out of sight, but I will put it down in the bottom right for you. And just remembering that in these videos you can always slow it down and follow along and just give it a little. So as you can see, I've now got my bushes, trees in the background. I've got a light brown, but what I'd call it's a kind of texture, let's call it, in the foreground. We want to just create that warm base and then the cool base in the background. I like to work from background to foreground, but as I'm doing in this one, I'm just focusing on my colors and focusing on using a fair amount of paint and just applying softly and slowly. I mean, in real time it's slow, but as you can see, I'm quite a fan of this kind of vertical brush stroke, which is generally how you'll see my brush moving as I go through the painting, particularly with the field. As you can see in the field in the bottom, in the field itself, there's actually kind of almost just like these striated lines of bands of color, very soft in color, soft in it's subtle warmth, subtle cools, but I'm kind of bringing that in, and in those vertical lines I'm kind of attacking it almost, and then you can see how I bring the brush across, and that's actually just a blurring technique which softens the foreground, keeping in mind we're going for that kind of dreamy feel. Here I'm just blocking in the mountains in the background, or hills is probably a more appropriate term, and with that classic what we'd call atmospheric perspective, where it gets, that they get darker the closer they are to you. So the further they are away, there's more blue, there's more kind of haze in the light, and the mountains get further and further away. I'm establishing a nice kind of hard horizon line, and just getting all those kind of, let's call them the mid distance, in, so that I can just establish that in between those trees and make sure that there's just a continuity of those colors, because you don't want to come back later on and be like, oh shit, I didn't bring in the blues, you know. Quick transition onto the trees. But just a quick note on the palette. I want to just emphasize, and I do this a lot with my students, how important it is to kind of manage your palette. And what I mean by that is to put the paints on the outside of the palette and to mix in the middle, and then you could just kind of give it a wipe or give it a clean with the palette scraper. This is actually a piece of glass from a picture frame that I use, which just fits the frame quite well. But generally, in class we use like these kind of clear perspex boards, and so yeah, I've popped in those nice dark browns. I'm to get closer to black, or what we'd call a chromatic black, and what I'd use for these trees. It's actually not a black at all. It's a blue and a brown, aka a burnt umber and a phthalo blue. Burnt umber is our brown, phthalo blue is our blue. I'm just putting in some highlights there just to soften things, push it back. You can see how the composition's coming together quite nicely. I haven't really introduced a lot of the warms just yet, but I guess the warms are, yeah, by nature just sitting in those browns underneath. They'll come. I did actually put in some nice browns, oranges around the edges of those trees on the right, and I'll continue to do that and just kind of push and pull. You know, painting really is a matter of putting something down and then almost taking a proverbial step back from it and taking a look at it and going, is this working? I don't really know, not too sure. And then coming in like I did just there, just with a bigger brush, blurring, softening, resolving, and allowing the paint to come onto the canvas or the wood block with a little bit of strong intention of detail, and then to soften that detail. That's how we get that dreamlike feel. Getting some darks into the foreground here. Again, just lots of vertical strokes and then a little bit of blurring and softening. I want to actually try to get that all the way down to the edge of the canvas. Okay, you can see I'm using my whole palette, and I'm really focusing on creating soft, muted tones, but also allowing those tones to be kind of in there. There's a fair amount of variation between warm and cool, kind of dark and light, but it really is quite subtle. They are quite muted or desaturated, and in so doing are kind of emphasize that dreaminess of the analog photo that just, I don't know, it captures like an atmosphere that is second to none. I mean, a lot of this is, you're painting grass and you're painting distant mountains. There's a lot of blues and purples and greens and a little bit of yellow, but it really hasn't warmed up just yet. These are the warmth will come later on, and the warmth will come as a way of almost treating the painting. And just allowing that softness to happen in the background too. I'm actually creating a little bit of detail there in between the trees just to give it a little bit more life. It's not so blocky. It's a bit of darkness, and as you can see there again, a nice just softening with the brush, kind of horizontal brush stroke with the bigger brush, and then the warmer kind of oranges coming around that. I tend to do this painting in probably about 2 or 3 sittings. Um, can be done in one. I just tend to like to let it dry and also give it a little bit of space. Come back to it with a bit of a clear eye and something that just a bit of resolve in my mind, to look at something that's, I don't know, got a little bit of character. But yeah, this guy's a pretty painting. I mean, it's starting to come together nicely. I think as we block in things that create a bit of distance in the background, I'm just gonna slowly up the ante on the colors here. And, it's just like I don't know, something about this kind of a scene that just makes me feel like it's a weekend away, nothing too serious. Have a braai, couple of waves, a little run in the veld, as we'd say. I just kind of come in and put some real kind of, I don't know, capture the dreamy quality of not too many responsibilities and quite a lot of good stuff on the go. It's weird, I kind of feel like those oranges are coming through. Yes, oranges, let's go. Okay, cool, now we come in with the warmth. See how I'm constantly softening with that horizontal stroke, and bring that warmth into the trees too. Which it's really starting to take shape now. I can see how distance of this is created, and as I do put in that kind of highlight on the horizon line, it really separates that sky from the mountains, allows it to just become a kind of multi-depth fold scenario that we can kind of familiarize for ourselves. This is very like a kind of weird watching my hand work so fast. You're like, oof, dude, just slow down. And you have to remind yourself, no, this is double speed. This is the nature of the game. So, yeah, as I said before, the idea is sped this up to double so that you can watch it without falling asleep, but also so that you have the potential to turn my voice off and turn it down to half speed, and then the half speed becomes something that you can follow along to, and really take your time. I mean, you can take it up to a 10th speed if you really want. It's up to you. But the nature of it is just to kind of create a little bit of a runway. So as I mix paints, you might be a little bit slower and just want to take your time. Enjoy it. I mean, that's the whole thing. Kind of creating let's call it an out of body experience by doing something like this and allowing for this ourselves a bit of space, a kind of couple of hours to make a nice soft dreamy landscape painting. That's what we can ask for, really. But yeah, as those darks come into the foreground, it really does kind of amplify the depth and the marks in the background, the way the sun is. I guess that's what I'm trying to do with the warmth, is trying to capture the sun and the warmth as the sun kind of catches it from behind, almost backlit. Interesting. Those clouds are almost quite grey. They're not all that exciting, but looks like that's about to change. A little bit of warmth in the mix, capturing a little sunshine and roses. Also, okay, just keep going back with that little cross cross venture there with the brush, just to create a little variation there, a little softening. Generally speaking, I tend to paint with my, I look like I'm writing, and I think it's actually sometimes better to have your brush further away from you, your canvas further away from you, and your brush hold further down the shaft of the brush, not to kind of write. I teach my students to create a little bit of distance between themselves and their canvas, and I teach them to hold their brush a little further away. It kind of loosens you up. But yeah, what I've done here is a little bit all got a little aggressive quite quickly there, but what I've done is I've actually waited for the painting to dry, and then I've taken a piece of cotton towel and I've rubbed the painting with a little bit of terps to create a kind of softening. I'm almost taking away a bit of detail, and what that's done is it takes away any unnecessary, let's say, I don't know, unnecessary paint. I mean, is there such a thing? But paint that doesn't really kind of serve the softness of the painting. What that rub does is it softens everything that we have. It kind of blurs the elements, and it allows for a to kind of like invoke that dreaminess that I've been harping on about. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of bring back certain intensities in certain areas that I really like. So, for instance, I've done here in the trees, I'm kind of popping those browny blue, chromatic black back into the trees, and I'm bringing in those kind of backlit warms that happen on the trees and in the background. It's a bit of it feels like a bit of a risky move doing that rub, but what I've found, if you kind of just give it a couple of days to dry, it really does allow for a beautiful kind of treatment of the painting. I mean, a lot can be said for kind of rubbing paint away in paintings. It creates a softening, and then can also create a new vision on where to emphasize, like I am doing now. It's bringing in a little bit more warmth. You can kind of tactically look at it and go, well, what does this need? So I'm going to bring in warmth, and I'm going to bring in these little white flowers in the foreground, and I'm going to really make it kind of pop in certain ways. There, just like that, the dark, emphasizing darkness in the foreground, like blurred but darkened, kind of upping the contrast of the painting and allowing for the field to have a little bit more space. Again, brushing it with that cotton roll, and allowing that to kind of soften the whole thing. Come back with get those mountains in, and now we're really wrapping it up. This is kind of the last little push, what I could call a faffing moment. Do a lot of faffing. I feel like painting is mostly faffing. And then just reworking those clouds a little bit. You might not find this necessary, but I tend to like that effect of rubbing something out, and almost just leaving the traces of the paint that I've put down. Got a little bit of glare there, sorry about that. We'll work on that one. But I think that's pretty much the landscape as it is. Definitely managed to capture a lot of that dreaminess and that softness. relatively limited palette, and a beautiful little painting that you can pop into a frame and chuck on your wall. Actually, I'm really enjoying I tend to paint on canvas, so just painting on these wood blocks is actually kind of creating like a different kind of interaction. It's a little bit more resilient to aggressive marks, like when I rub off like that. So that's also a nice thing to take forward, and what I will be working on this channel from here on out. But that is about that. You obviously have once it's completely dry, you have the option to give it a little varnish for that sheen and get it framed and enjoy. Thanks so much for coming to the first video and sitting through, and I'll see you in the next one.